Alright, so this is Diesel We the People News. Alrighty, so this is videos without prejudice and or without recourse. I'm not an attorney, so I'm not giving legal advice. I will give my opinion, but never legal advice. Because why? I'm not an attorney. However, I never look just straight forward. I always look around me to be able to protect myself by any means necessary. And sometimes we have to go back in history. Okay? And I have a tendency to forget sometimes people don't check out history. But most people don't know this. Our Constitution came from England of 700 years of trial and errors from the people to the kings, because the kings wanted to keep their heads. So the kings actually come up with some type of agreement with the people, okay, which came up with Magna Carta and a bunch of other stuff, right? But what our founding fathers did, since they knew history, and they actually said it, I don't know what the future lies. I just know what the future said, or the past. I can only go by the light of the past to see the future, okay? Because shit's been over and over and over done, right? Which is happening in England, okay? Every time there was a new king, there was always a new challenge for the people. But yeah, that's where our Constitution came from, right? The first, second, and third, fourth, fifth Amendment, all the way to the 10th Amendment. Okay, was due to the 7 years of the people and the kings arguing back and forth with one another. Okay, so there's a lesson for you. Our Constitution was brought over from England. Surprise, surprise. I mean, our founding fathers was Brits, so you know it kind of makes sense, right? However, they're trying to keep everything at bay. That's the reason why we didn't have a king and we have a president now. However, our states decided to gain forces to make themselves kings, and nobody can go after them because, well, number one, they're a thing, and things don't have rights, okay? And yet they somehow or another managed to have a 11th Amendment right, which is actually conflict of interest against the first 10. So that right there made it null and void. Alright, period, y'all. So let's check this video out. Maybe it's a little learning curve for y'all. Alright, and me, by the way.
The rule of law is not a phrase well understood in Australia. In Australian governance, it can often go unnoticed, ignored, or even forgotten. The rule of law underpins our democratic society through representative government, the idea that the people have all the power. It protects our rights from individuals in a higher position who think the law does not apply to them. One of the reasons we do not notice the rule of law in action is simply because it all works so well. The Magna Carta, which is Latin for the Great Charter, was a list of demands and expectations forced on the evil king, John of England, in the year 1215. King John tortured people living in his kingdom by starving them and throwing them into prison for the smallest of reasons. He also took their wives and their...
And this is actually where judges and all that started coming in, by the way, in England, okay, to make it fair. Why? Because the people were starting to get pissed, all right? And he was on the verge of losing his head. And he thought, well, I like to be a mean ruler and all that, but I like my head a little too much. So let's go ahead and deal with these dirty, rotten scoundrels. That's beneath me, okay?
Castles. The Magna Carta established the rule of law, and the idea that all citizens, including those in power, should be fairly and equally ruled by the law.
Whoa, wait a minute. So the king and people should be equal. Well, that couple of videos back, right? We talked about the 11th Amendment. Okay? Article 3. Everything in Article 3 was equal until the states decided to gather up and made them the evil king. And you servants cannot go after them because, by gosh, we don't pay our debts. So therefore, you cannot sue us for money we actually owe you. Piece of Never mind. I'm fixing to lose it. Alright.
The king is no longer above the law. On the 15th of June, 1215, King John sealed the Magna Carta. By doing this, he was now saying, I agree to follow the laws of the land. This outcome is the main principle of the rule of law. No one is above the law. In Australia today, laws are made by the Parliament and then administered and interpreted by the courts to secure a safe and free society for all citizens. Under the
some of this thing has really cracked me up today, right? Sovereign citizen. Right? Sovereign citizen. Alright? They are above the law, y'all. Just saying.
The rule of law, everyone, including the Prime Minister and law enforcement officers, must follow the law. There are no exceptions. We are ruled by the law and the law alone. Under the Magna Carta, punishment could only be justified by a breach in the law. The punishment must also be fair and fit the crime committed. This meant that no one could be tortured just because they may have offended the king. Today in Australia, the rule of law protects our property, rights, and freedom by the courts, which follow recognized procedures. One procedure comes directly from the Magna Carta.
It protects all your Australians' rights. And yet they've been taking their property, land and all that, the body. On here, do you see any difference what the United States are going through right now? Okay? If I don't pay my land tax, they can garnish my land and change my right of owning property into a privilege that can be taxed. Well, what about this? What about this? And what about this? Okay, y'all, we're gonna have to go back to the Founding Fathers one more time. Lessons, okay? If you give a right up for safety or privileges, then we don't deserve either one, and the government don't think you deserve rights because you're not going to fight for it. Well, look, we're going to take these things from these people because, well, they don't think they have rights. And, well, even if they think they have rights, they're not going to be fighting us. Why? Because we got armed guards to protect us that's got sovereign citizen immunity. And we got these judges out here that's going to back us up of all these violations we do. So the judges, we're going to tell the judges not to sentence us to Article 18. Is it 18? Oh yeah, I believe it's 18. 241 and 242. That's the reason why you don't never see that on paperwork when you sue them. Because they're backing up one another. Just we the people don't back one another up. But government officials actually back each other up. Could be complete strangers and they back up each other, and we the people don't. Because they divided us. By the way, by your consent.
Clause 39. No free man shall be seized or imprisoned, or stripped of his rights or possessions, or outlawed, or exiled, or deprived of his standing in any other way, except by the lawful. judgment of his equals, or by the law of the land.
Alright, so if you think I'm actually halfway full of crap, no man shall be seized. Right? Don't that in essence sound like the Fourth Amendment right there, y'all? Of our writings? If you really break it down, that is actually the Fourth Amendment. So Australia has the Fourth Amendment. Why do they have the Fourth Amendment? Because we got it from England, and Australia got it from England. Okay? Just saying. The only difference is, anymore, is that judges gave everybody sovereign citizen immunity. And by gosh, if they're going to use it against us, we're going to use it right back against them.
This is called due process. Qualified independent judiciary. Independent meant not under coercive control of the king. This ensured that the people could go to a judge if they had a dispute. An independent judge could deliver an authoritative, final, and enforceable solution, including a disagreement someone may have had with the king. Today, mechanisms are provided in the Australian Constitution to ensure independence in all decision-making processes, such as a separation of powers.
What are we using, y'all? Separation of powers? Right? This is Australia. What are we using? Just saying. Our Constitution is by the same guidelines. Alright? But, just like all the other countries, they are not listening to the people. Alright? They're not going by. And mainly because of number one, we have corrupt judges and we have corrupt Supreme Court justices. These more recent years, we've actually had fairly decent rulings out of the Supreme Courts, our opinions, but not near what it should be, y'all. And it costs thousands of dollars. How many of you guys have the money to actually go to the Supreme Courts? Which goes again, you challenge the due process. Well, I don't have thousands of dollars. Well, you can't go to the Supreme Court. Also, you deny me due process? Yes or no? Because I live under a bridge and don't have no money, so I do not have equal justice because I'm poor? Conflict of interest right there, people.
The legislature, executive, and judiciary are all independent in their decision-making abilities.
Alright, again, y'all. Does that sound familiar in the United States? Exact same thing, isn't it? Just the wording may be a little bit different. Now, that being said, how did the judge get way up here?
The impartiality of judges is maintained. This means our judges remain separate from those who make the laws, the legislature. This process ensures that citizens receive a fair hearing if they ever find themselves in dispute with the law. Confidence in fair process. Ideally, under the rule of law, all people will be treated equally and fairly by the law, and given the same consideration, regardless of their position and wealth in society, their race, gender, nationality, or beliefs. This is one of the most important principles of the Magna Carta, ensuring everyone will receive a fair trial, without improper influence or corruption. A fair trial includes an independent court, like we just talked about with an independent judiciary, is open to the public to observe, is held promptly and without undue delay, and finally, it considers the accused innocent until...
Alright, we're going to walk down this list. Independent courts, open to the public to observe. Okay, we're talking about this as Australia. And that's exactly what's supposed to be going on in the United States. Alright? Now, they put a gag order about us filming in court. But the key word is it's supposed to be open to the public to observe. So, are you saying that I'm not supposed to be public here in Texas and I cannot hear a case in California? No, that is not the case. So when they say you're not allowed to film in court, that is a gag order, y'all, to the public. Most people don't use it because most of us didn't think about it. And there has been Supreme Courts saying gag orders are unconstitutional. So even the Supreme Courts contradict themselves. Well, you can't film in court unless you got the judge's permission. But it's unconstitutional to have a gag order. So we're just going to say, no, you can't film in court. But we're not going to call it a gag order. But that's exactly what it is. A judge is ordering you not to record for public interest. Y'all, that is a gag order. All right, some of the words I've been saying, right? Without due delay. Undue delay. Sorry. Okay? Justice denied, or justice delayed is justice denied. Innocent until proven guilty. So the courts are supposed to think that we are innocent. However, you go to court, and the courts always back up the cops. Okay? Again, conflict of interest. Automatically. The cop is the one who's supposed to prove that you're guilty. Just saying, y'all.
Proven guilty. Known by all. After the Magna Carta was agreed to, many copies were made and sent out to all of the towns and churches. It was reissued many times by subsequent kings and queens. The document was read aloud twice a year and posted all over the towns, including nailed to church doors. This way, the law was widely known, and every person knew the king was also required to follow the law, and in doing so, accept the consequences of potentially breaking the law.
For history lessons again, and even though it was unconstitutional, some of the not the founding fathers, but some of the government officials, this is how public courts actually started, was to send kids to school to learn the Constitution. All right. Now this right here says they promoted the paperwork out to everybody to read and not to be forgetting. But that's the reason why public schools was actually invented in the United States, is to make sure they understood the Constitution so they did not violate we the people, us men and women, of our natural rights. Remember, the government's sole purpose is to protect our rights, but absolute power corrupts. Okay? And our founding fathers said we got to stay on it. Matter of fact, they said every 20 years we need a revolution, basically, I'm going to just say it in essence, to go in there and clean house. And say, hey, okay, we're going to reset this. You guys are getting a little out of control. Every 20 years we're supposed to be doing this, y'all. And we haven't been doing it, and you see what we've been having today. Out of control, ruled violations against the people by their own governments. And the only difference is everybody else had thousands of years. It only took us a good short couple of years to be in the exact same spot as everybody else. We really actually have no difference in the United States as some of the other countries. Some other countries are worse, some of the other countries may be better. But in all actuality, we're really no different. We're the last beaming light, and that beaming light is disintegrating.
The rule of law in Australia can be traced back to the sealing of the Magna Carta in 1215. The original clauses of the Magna Carta cannot be found word for word in our laws, but are the foundations which protect human rights in Australian society, by providing a safe and secure society, where justice and freedom underpin the foundations of our parliamentary democracy. To reflect upon the Magna Carta and its influence on the rule of law, try answering the following questions. 1.
Hang on. And it can be found. It's just the kings and queens are not letting people see it like they once did by posting it up in church doors and all that. They still have it in their little storage building.
Why was it so important for the Magna Carta to be distributed, recognized, and regularly reissued to all of the people of England? 2. Under the rule of law, what do you think would happen if the Prime Minister broke an Australian law? 3. If one of our leaders was able to sack or cut the pay of a judge he did not like or agree with, how might this influence future decisions by a court of law? And 4. How does due process help to deliver justice?
Indeed. How does that help do justice when justice is just as corrupt? Anyway, people, sorry about this video taking a little longer than it did. Till next time, bye y'all.